Hello friends, thanks for joining me today. Today I am working on my E pieces of my mountain block. And so I am just cutting out all of my pieces and gently moving the cat out of the way. Here I am using my paper scissors. And now since it is time to cut out all of my fabric pieces, I have switched over to my fabric scissors. And I am just cutting around the template with a generous 1/4 inch seam allowance. If there's a lot of curves or points, I tend to do a smaller seam allowance, a tighter seam allowance, I guess you could call it, or I'll trim it down a little bit so it's not so bulky. And here I am cutting out all of my pieces before glue basting them. And since this piece has curves that curve inward, I am notching my curves. It's called a concave curve as compared to a convex curve. One we have to notch so the fabric wraps around the paper nicely. If we do not, it creates a lot of tension. And you can see here I'm trimming down my seam allowance just a little bit for the little tips. And I am glue basting my pieces. I like to be generous with my glue basting. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm not expecting to reuse my papers in this one, but perhaps if I was, I would only add the glue to the fabric. There are kind of two ways you can do your gluing. You could glue to the fabric, you could glue to the paper, or you could just glue however you want, just slap it on there, which is in general what I tend to do. It just seems really quick. I don't need a lot of precision. I just need to get the glue on there. And somehow that works for me. And so if I don't have my points pointy enough, I will use this time to point them together. Okay, last piece of the background. As you can see, I changed my background fabric choices to this golden speckled from Ruby Star Society. And because of that, I had to change the moon and the starburst colors, or just one color. I'm just doing one color. I changed it to this blue speckled, like a robin egg blue. It matches my fingernails pretty closely. It's one of my favorite colors, especially paired with that golden. So here I am doing the same. I cut out my piece, I trimmed down the seams, and then I notch my curves because it curves inward. I might be overly confident in what I do, but it is easy to do it while everything is flat on the table. So don't think that you have to hold the piece in the air like a crazy person with scissors to get it done. You don't. And you could see here how nicely my curves were notched. And I am just going to tighten up my points here, and I'm using my fingernail to do so. Really anything flat can help you get to that point, to the pointy, like a butter knife. Just be careful not to cut your fabric. And so all of my pieces are basted and all set to be sewn together. I'm just going to lay them out so I know how everything looks when I sew it together. And see, with the background, those other three pieces don't seem like too much. I can't say I really liked it, but I am glad this is one of the things where I trust the process and I kept going. So here I am waxing my thread with my thread balm. I wax my thread to keep the ends from fraying. I'll lick our thread because that's what causes it to fray, and then it will curl in on itself as you sew, and that's what creates knots. And so the wax just acts as some sort of barrier on it. And because there is shea butter in there, it also conditions your fingers. So here I moved my dog ear out of the way. I am doing the flat back stitch to sew these two together. I am going through just the seam allowance, just a little bit on each side, and pulling tight, but not too tight that my thread breaks. And I am going to do this for all 3 pieces. In real life, this takes about a half hour, but I have sped up a few things here to make it convenient for us. Let's call that movie magic. And this is why I like to do my sewing on the couch in front of the TV at the end of the night, because I could just listen to whatever's going on. I don't have to pay attention to either thing too much. I just get to sit and be. And so here I have pushed my dog ear back into place. And if it didn't lay flat, I would have given it a good press once I was finished here. And we're just gonna zing right through this. Now that we have reached the end of our first piece, we don't really need to put a knot. We just need to travel our thread over to the next spot. We don't want to stitch our dog ears onto our third piece. We solve that by moving our thread over to the other side, the non-dog ear side. And just like before, we stab our needle through the new piece using the same stitch as before, the flat back stitch. We are just going to go through our seam allowance on the back of our project. And again, we're just gonna breeze right through it. It really would be great if I stitched this fast. Whole project done in 10 minutes. In real life, it took me about 30 minutes to sew these 3 pieces together. And once we reach the end here, we are just going to continue on down the line and add our third background piece. It is looking really good. Feeling quite pleased. And continuing with the same as before, move any dog ears out of the way. And using the flat back stitch, let's sew these last pieces together. And again, we will zing right through it. At this point, I hope we're pros. And there we have it. Now we have reached the end. This time I will knot off and I will press my piece and get it prepared for next time. Thanks for joining me, my friends. See you next time.